Okay,
All right, so I'm here with Francis Lansana. He is from Liberia and he's involved in the educational system in Liberia. And I thank you very much for joining me and giving my class some information on education in your country.
thank you so much. Thank you. I am really not like directly involved in the educational system, because if I say directly, that means I am not working with Ministry of Education. So I am not like one of the key official actor of educational institutions in Liberia or educational processes in Liberia. However, I'm a citizen of Liberia. I acquired all my educations in Liberia, and I have been going through the system. I know to my understanding, my thought, I know what are some of the challenges and what are some of the things that contribute into some of these challenges, and what could be some of the best approaches we think we can put in place in order to handle some of these challenges. And so, like you saw, one of my articles in the Heritage newspaper that I did was to be able to have a comparative analysis between what I refer to as the traditional educational system, which has its origin in the African I call it African graduation school system, where one component of it is the poorer society that's actually focused on male education in the form of a poorer society initiation. And then the other aspect of it that has to do with female is the Sunday society, which is exclusively for female. But what inspired me to have done this was I was among people that having educational conversations, only talking about the issue of the curriculum, the school system is bad, but they were not able to establish what are some of the issues that is making the educational system bad. And then some of them started to come out outrightly to begin to condemn the traditional value of education. So
Mm.
I knew completely that there was a contradiction, because I knew that no matter how good the Western education is, if you are to develop what I refer to as educational curriculum for every society, every country, you need to, in the first place, take into consideration what are the societal cultural value. Because in a teaching pedagogy, it is clear that there's nothing so difficult for anyone to learn. But what you need to do is to begin with them from what they know, and what they know is enshrined into their cultural structure. So if you could look at how the poorer society component of teaching the male into, for example, how to become a family head, how to be an administrator, what you can do, and that which they used to teach in the poorer society. If you look at it and see what are some of the values in it, how can the value component of it be blended into the educational system that could give a bit of more cultural lens of how this curriculum is being structured, then maybe we might be able to like deal with the challenges that we think are availing themselves due to cultural issues. So that is what inspired me to have come out to write this short article that you saw. And that is why I titled it as The Effect of Culture and Tradition on Education in Liberia.
Well, that's
And
fantastic. Yeah, thank you. I was going to say, so I was going to ask you, what are the biggest challenges facing like education in Liberia? But and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're telling me right now is it seems to try to connect the educational system to the cultural values of the people in each country, and of course, specifically for Liberia. So we have to figure out an effective way to connect it to the cultural and traditions of each country.
yeah, sure.
Okay, I just try to simplify it. Great, great. So, I would say, what have you considered to be the best gains in the educational system? Since obviously the Civil War period and recent years, what have you considered the best gains or successes of Liberian education system?
One of the best gain is the system have been able to have more enrollment of females, and that which was a key challenge prior to the Civil War, and the system itself is becoming more cognizant that the incorporation of other value that could serve as incentives or that could serve as a motivational factors are maybe being considered, for which we are seeing more women or more people coming, or that increasing the enrollment of people in schools. And so I think that's one of the best gains. And they are, through some of the advocacy, they are trying to like create a means of a structure so that the traditional school system processes timing will now coincide with the time that the children have to go to school. So that kind of coordination among traditional school system and that of the former structural school system is actually bearing up, and that which is more interesting. And it's becoming glaring that for example, if you want to teach the issue of like normally we can associate the name of the alphabet to some common things that the children learning can easily grab. For example, we can say A for apple, B for ball. But yet, if you're teaching children A for apple and they have not seen apple, they don't know what apple is like. So that means you're teaching them from an abstract value. It become like one of the components that required inclusion of the cultural aspect of it. What is it that the children that you are teaching can easily relate to in regard to the measurement that you are, the issue that you are talking about, A for apple? What is apple? How would they be able to identify? Because the essence of education is to be able to transform the mind, to be able to describe better what the teacher is talking about. But if I don't know apple and then you say A for apple, so then you ask me what is apple, I will only be able to say A for apple. So that becomes the cultural and traditional aspect, one of the cultural and traditional aspect that I was looking at. So people are now like gradually shifting from using the abstract things that the children cannot easily interact with to something that they can see, they can feel that is around them. Because the intent is to practicalize what they are learning. So in essence, the educational system is trying to like, bring on board more of the literature of Liberia.
So making the educational content more relevant and connected to Liberia is
Yes.
the important thing. Great. So something that we're discussing in our class together, for as far as assistance, whether that's governmental assistance, whether that's international assistance, or NGOs, maybe the United Nations, have there been successes from international cooperation in improving the Liberian education system as far as you are concerned or consider? Has there been success from foreign institutions?
I can say yes, because even at the end of the war, there was the issue of shortage of qualified teachers to teach. But prior to the war, we have what we refer to as the rural teachers training institutions. There were three, and because of the war, they got destroyed. They became dilapidated, and so from the international support, there was a means to rehabilitate it and then to recondition all of the facilities and to make it fully functional. And students started to attend, even though they were only trained to be offered what they were referring to as C certificate. So that became a success. So for primary school, there were more teachers. That system was able to actually train more qualified primary school teachers which is very essential because it's the foundational point of education that when children actually acquire the quality from there, they will enhance them as they grow up. So I see that as one of the best sources. And through USAID and other institutions, international partners, they were also being able to work with Ministry of Education to look at some of the lessons, the learning materials, production of textbooks in a localized content, and helping with other learning materials, which are very essential, and also trying to actually, like we're talking about, the incorporation of the cultural aspect of it, so that the learning become more local, more practical, that the student can easily relate to things that they are actually learning about.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask specifically which international institutions have been the most helpful in Liberian education specifically?
If I qualify it, I might give you the wrong figure because I have not absolutely done any research on that. But for example, there is this International Rescue Committee, they call it IRC. They are also in the educational system where they help to provide sometimes in-service training for teachers. They help to provide educational logistics supply like copybooks for students. And there's this other one, they call it, I don't know, they were TTP. It was also a USAID sponsor project that they were also providing educational support through training, and other activities to give more capacity to teachers and to also Ministry of Education. UNICEF is also, for example, working with Ministry of Education, to deal with the issue of adolescents, and so they work with Ministry of Education to produce what they call life skill training curriculum for adolescents. And in that life skill training, there are issues like teamwork, communication, health education for adolescents. All the basic things are there. So I can say most of them are doing, but if I qualify and say this has done more, this is doing more, I will give you the wrong answer.
Well, I appreciate that, are just looking for the reality of the situation. And with follow up on that question, from what's already happened or other international institutions that have been assisting Liberia, is there anything that you think would be an additional benefit that you hope we could get from more international cooperation that would be have specific benefits to Liberia? Or I'll rephrase it, is there anything that you would want or would encourage other countries or institutions to help specifically? Because a part of our project is the professor wants us to design a school to open in Liberia. And we're wondering if that is something that is even wanted or desired. Because I know you said it's about cultural connectivity to education, so that maybe that's something that we don't have the ability to do. So I'm wondering what international involvement is desired or wanted by Liberian education system.
I think one could be maybe a curriculum review to actually include more local content related materials. So for example, even at the university levels, you see that a teacher, for example, is teaching accounting, or let's say a teacher is teaching economics. There are other local businesses that have a very strong business history and they are doing very well. So why not go to the manager of that company or the owner of that company to actually give you the story that you can write in the form of an economic narrative that can be taught in the school, because that becomes something very local content that students can easily relate to. But then you will see someone will want to use the economy of Asia to do comparative analysis with Liberia, and the students should use, which most of them might even not be ever fortunate to even get a visa to go to Asia to actually see what those things are about. I am not in any way saying that the kinds of international comparison in education is bad. But before you take it to that level, how can I understand it from a local content that I will be able to digest, that when you bring the international face of it to me, I can use my local content to interpret and quickly relate to what you're talking about from the international angle. So you're teaching economics in high school or in university, you're using Wall Street. How is that reflective of my contemporary, my contextual environment? So maybe one key thing is to see how to work with the educational institutions to see if it is something doable, to relook at the curriculum and say, look, we know you're supposed to be teaching economics, you're supposed to be teaching market, you're supposed to be teaching production, but the examples, the materials that you are using, the textbooks that you are using, the examples are very abstract. They are a bit far from Liberia. So let's look for a local material that we can use that the student can easily relate to. And that could be something more sustainable.
Okay, thank you very much. And I apologize in advance for this question because it's pretty open-ended and you don't even have to answer it if you don't want to. But I was going to say, if you had the ability to design or create a school from scratch, how would you lay it out in Liberia? What would be the most successful version of a school as far as you consider?
First, if I want to start with my school, I have to like take into consideration what the environment is like. That include what is the attitudes of the people towards education? What kind of education? Who are my target? What I'm doing, is it a university that I'm trying to open? Is it a middle level certificate training program? Is it for primary beginning schools? Is it for secondary middle level schools? Who are the target, and how do I want it to go on? So once I identify all of these things, and then I know what are the current challenge or challenges that the system is confronted with, that will help me to design what best approach to use and what best strategy to put in place and how to deal with it. Because know now that even in the classroom, before you go to classroom as a teacher, your lesson that is prepared is targeting 3 individuals, meaning there are people who are slow learners, they are way down the line. Your curriculum should also capture them. There are people who are at the middle level in learning, your curriculum should also capture them. There are people who are at the top, they are the fast learners, your curriculum also capture them. So if you are preparing a school and your focus is only based on one aspect of these 3 categories, you might not be successful. So if I'm to build a school, I need to firstly know who are my target and what is their orientation towards education, and what are the current available resources that they are using for this education, what are the gaps, and what are the strengths. So those things might help me to better structure the kind of school I want to have.
Fantastic, thank you. And a question I just thought of while I was listening to you speak is, do you think it'd be highly beneficial to have more foreign international teachers in Liberian schools, or should teachers from other countries support native Liberian educators?
I think having a foreign teachers is also one way of learning from foreign cultural perspective of what education is, through an in-person, presentation, which might be helpful. Because, for example, let's assume you are a citizen of Norway, and then if you go to Liberia, for example, to serve as a teacher, when you're teaching you will, in certain time, you want to bring the cultural perspective of how education is being like in Norway, and how is that related to what the actual reality is like in Liberia, and how the children of Liberia or the students of Liberia or the learners of Liberia, could use the opportunity of what they have to actually better themselves. Because in most instances, we feel that what we have is not always enough, especially when it comes to educational knowledge. And having a foreign teachers could also serve as I call a in-house learning for national teachers, because it become like in-house sharing, where the foreign teachers can work with the local teachers, to have, so that the foreign teachers can have more understanding of what the local content is, and then the local teachers. So these things were even in practice. There used to be this Peace Corps programs that the Peace Corps used to go. Some of them go to some of the villages and spend like 1 year, 6 months, two months. Some spend 2 weeks, depending on the either the sponsorship or the objective of the program, or depending on the schedule of the individual. Yeah, so it would be a good thing to have what you just referred to as a foreign teacher, you know.
Okay, and the last thing I have to ask is, my class, we're all studying master in teaching, so we're all international. We have students from the United States, we have students from the UK, from the Philippines. We're all interested in teaching internationally. What would you just recommend to us to strive for to be better educators?
One key thing is that will bring us back to the cultural and traditional aspect of it. And that will also include the issue of evaluation of even the students. Because sometimes maybe the standard that is set in the US to evaluate students might be different from the standard that might be set in Liberia for education, for evaluation of students. So as an international teacher, one key thing that should come to your mind is the issue of cultural difference. That also comes with language barrier. It comes with the environment structure. And it comes with the institution, the educational institution structure itself, and the challenge with infrastructure also. Because, for example, maybe in your country, students are taught, from projector. If you go there, you have to use chalk to write on the board. Maybe in your country, students are allowed to have maybe some conversation even as we are in the class teaching, because it becomes part of human right and other issues. But maybe in other areas, they will say you don't have to talk once the teacher is in class. So you have to begin to adjust yourself to that kind of value system. And you also have to look at the available materials in terms of the curriculum, and what are the required textbooks or the required materials that the curriculum is calling for. And what are the availability of the materials? For example, if you are teaching maybe in the 9th grade or in the 10th grade, you're teaching chemistry, maybe the curriculum might call you to teach stoichiometry, or it might call you to teach gas law. But are those materials actually available that the teacher can use effectively to teach? If they are not available, what is it? Is the teacher going to, just flip over and pass? So if that becomes the issue, how is that going to be, negatively impacting or positively impacting the students? So it suggests that if you are to go, for example, as an international student, these are things you need to first look at. And for example, where I'm from, my village, I have only one high school there, but it doesn't have a library. And the internet penetration is very low. So if you are going there as an international teacher to teach, and you are used to evaluating students, giving an assignment that they can easily go online and find some resources. So the consideration now become what could be the best option, because these students, there's not even a library that they can walk to and pick books to read, left alone to go online. So if I should give them assignment, what could be some consideration? And if they do not score the required grade, how do I as a teacher actually deal with that kind of, I don't want to call it frustration, that kind of challenges? Should I just say they are dull or they are not serious? What could be some of the factors? How will I help them to actually overcome some of this barrier? So you put all of those things in place as international teacher who want to actually help and see how to deal with it. And then you will put yourself in that condition while going on the field.
Wonderful, well put. Is something else I just remembered, the research that we did, my group, we read an article, and like correct us if we're wrong, but it was, I think it was from 2013, and the previous president had said that all high school students that year, I think it was around 25,000, had failed the university entrance exam. Hopefully that information is correct. Have you seen substantial improvement? Are you aware of that in any way?
I saw it because I was also in Liberia at the time, and some of us started to question, because so this thing become like, because the university entrance that they took is the university that I graduated from, what I did my undergraduate degree, that's University of Liberia. So we are also looking at what was the accountability component of the questions that were given to the students.
Yeah, it's very important. We've been talking
Is the
about,
university, was those questions more advanced than what is being taught in high schools? Because someone who is sitting an entrance enrollment for undergraduate degree, the question that you should be asking them for entrance should be in line with what they have been taught in high school. So if there's a variation, we started to question ourselves, some of us, was it that the Ministry of Education did not describe the required materials for students to have acquired the knowledge that they need? Is it that there's a gap in the materials that the teachers are presenting? Is it that teachers are not trained to teach? So I was like even suggesting, how can we bring the authority of the University of Liberia and that of the Ministry of Education to have a fine line to know what is the problem? Sometimes students failing the exam is not that they are dull, but you also look at the standard that is set for evaluation. So those were some of the questions some of us started to ask. Because it's not possible 25,000 students to just instantly outrightly fail. So if we should ask you, bring all the fail paper for second evaluation, will you agree? Those you think that they pass, bring their paper, and those who fail, bring their paper. Let's do comparative analysis. What is it that you want? Was it a trap that the university wanted to condemn the Ministry of Education system? So we also need to like understand what is it that they wanted.
what was the objective? Were there ulterior motives in having all the students fail? Yeah, political issues, perhaps. Yeah. All right, and I really appreciate your time. I just want to kind of give you one last option. Is there anything else you think that we, as future international educators, should just know going forward, whether we end up teaching Asia, Africa, South America? What should we try to keep with us as we continue to go forward as educators?
Yeah, so that will be how more coordinated educational institutions are. So the same thing come back to what we are discussing about Liberia. We're looking, what kind of coordinations are existing among educational institutions? Beginning with the Ministry of Education, beginning with the teachers, beginning with regional structures, going up to universities. Is it that one university want to set the standard that when you come from this other institution, you go there and they say you are not qualified to be here just to prove something? What is the key objective behind the system set? How can we interlock the system to make it more coordinated, you know?
All right, so I really appreciate you for your time. I hope that we can keep a dialogue going. I'm going to share this with my fellow classmates and professor, and hopefully that you are able to, we can continue to create, I guess, educational interconnectivity internationally. I think that should be the
Sure.
goal and successful for everybody.